Hello once again, students. This is Mr. Gillespie once again on the YouTube learning channel right here on YouTube. This video specifically created for students of second form, grade 8, social studies. We'll be delving this time in part 2 of the series Human Activities Impacting the Caribbean Landscape. In the last video, we looked specifically at the categories of human activities, the primary, secondary, and the tertiary activities, and how these activities generally impact the Caribbean landscape. In this follow-up, or part 2, or conclusion of the series, I would like to look specifically at the various effects in greater detail, the impact that human activities have on not just the world in general, but the Caribbean landscape in particular. And so today we're going to look at things like pollution, erosion, deforestation, climate change, global warming, destruction of species, extinction of species, destruction of coral reefs, destruction of coastal areas like mangrove landscape, and I think I said deforestation already. And as we go through, we will make reference to the problems as they occur in various Caribbean countries and right here in Jamaica, where this video is being produced for high school students, both in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. Now, just a quick reminder before we delve into the new concepts as to what we covered the last time. We learned first of all that, as you can see on screen, this is the Caribbean region that will be referred to right throughout the lesson. Islands of the West Indies, Greater Antilles. There you can see the Bahamas north of Cuba and Hispaniola, the Greater Antilles Islands, Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola with Haiti and Dominican Republic, and of course Puerto Rico. And then when we go to the Eastern Caribbean, the islands of the Lesser Antilles, Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, etc., etc. The Caribbean region also includes Central American region with countries like Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, Panama, and of course the northern tip of South America, which would include, of course, countries like Guyana, and even as far north as the southern tip of the United States with Florida. So when we think of the Caribbean region, this is the area we're talking about. There you can see on screen examples of the various islands and countries that will be referred to. Jamaica, as you can see in the center of the screen, where this video was produced, will be referred to time and time again. Now, in the previous video, we also learned that the various activities that humans are engaged in can result in, and is resulting in, as we can see on screen, pollution, deforestation, climate change, flooding as a result, landslides from human activities on hillsides, forest fires and wildfires destroying the natural environment, and also adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, which add to and increase the problem of global warming. And of course, we learned that not only is the world being impacted, but the Caribbean as well. Now, we also learned some key basic concepts that are important in our study. And on screen, I'm reminding you of what they are or what they were. Today, we're going to delve a little further into many of these concepts. And so let me highlight the concepts that we will be looking at specifically today. Erosion, deforestation, pollution, specifically land pollution, water pollution and air pollution, noise pollution, climate change, global warming. We'll be looking at flooding or floods, droughts, forest or wildfires. We'll be looking at the depletion of resources, extinction of species. We'll be looking at the problem of overpopulation and overcrowding and how these impact the Caribbean landscape, the environment in which we live. And of course, as we go along, other new concepts will be added to the mix, and we will learn about them as we go through. Let us now delve into, in greater detail, the problems which result from human activities. Now, to help with this lesson, on screen you can see a chapter from a particular textbook which looks specifically at the problem of what we call environmental degradation, the spoiling of the environment, the damaging of the environment, the making less effective, less helpful, less beneficial the environment, the natural environment in which we live, and in some cases even the man-made environment. So we degrade by our human activities the environment, environmental degradation. And of course, we are going to look specifically with what we started out looking at in greater detail the last time. Deforestation, climate change, sea level rise. These are all forms of, as you can see on screen, what we call environmental degradation, which takes place when the natural world suffers because of human activity. One cause of environmental degradation is pollution. And what is pollution? Simply, it is the damage to, the spoiling of the environment caused by harmful substances and waste, of course, from humans, which affect the natural environment, sometimes the man-made environment, the home in which we live. Now, as you can see on screen, some pollutants, which is what we call the substances which are the agents which spoil the environment. Some pollutants include gases, liquids, and solids. And some of these pollutants are even given off by the natural environment, such as dust from volcanic eruptions or ash. But much of the pollutants, many or most, are caused by human activities. Now, the environmental problems which are caused by pollution, as you can see on screen, can be either local or they can be global, as we consider the concept of global warming and climate change all around the globe. Now, there are several types of pollution, in other words, spoiling the environment because of human waste, and air pollution features prominently in our study because we started out, if you remember, in the earlier video looking at global warming, which is the result of air pollution. So air pollution includes invisible gases such as carbon dioxide, one of the greenhouse gases which cause the temperatures to rise each year, dust, and of course ash from volcanoes in parts of the Caribbean, like the Eastern Caribbean. But we are looking more so at those pollutants in the air which are let off by human activities. So carbon dioxide, methane gas, nitrous oxide, and of course all of these waste products which come from our factories coming through their chimneys, which add to the air and spoil the quality of the air that we breathe in, and of course it affects the climate. Then there is what is called water pollution, and it's self-explanatory, whether it be the seas or the oceans or the lakes on land or running water like rivers, or even underground sources of water stored that we get our freshwater supply from. When these sources of water and these bodies of water are contaminated by human waste. So as you see on screen, water pollution include chemicals which are often invisible and solid objects that we can see and that float in our rivers, lakes, and seas. So once we damage, spoil, or contaminate the bodies of water, sources of fresh water, for instance, with human waste, whether it be chemical waste or it be physical or solid waste, then we have what is called water pollution. There is also what is considered to be noise pollution for those persons who live especially in the cities and towns. The constant humming of motor cars and motor vehicles passing, the aeroplanes flying overhead, of course the jukeboxes and sound system blaring down the street, and even at nights when people are to sleep, we have either some churches with a whole lot of noise running into hours of the night, or what we call entertainment sessions or dances, street dances. Noise pollution includes, as it says on screen, sounds that come from mechanical industry or from other human activities that can be damaging to one's ears. Not only damaging to your ears, but can be quite annoying and make life uncomfortable for those who are being interrupted by the noise all around. As you can see on screen, there's what is called land and soil pollution. And of course, this is a wide variety of substances which humans let off. It can be solid waste, garbage. It can be oil spills from factories which seep into the ground. It can be chemicals let off by factories which damage the soil. Wide variety of things which humans let off which can damage and spoil the land on which we live. And then of course there's what is called visual pollution. In the earlier video, introduction to this study, we learned of course, something called smog, in which once there is a mixture of smoke and fog, visibility in the air at a distance can be very much lowered, and it makes the whole environment look less attractive. And of course, inhaling this smog, we learned, can be damaging to one's health. So as it says on screen, visual pollution makes the landscape look less attractive and can damage a country's economy by, for example, discouraging tourists from visiting an area, and also dissuade or discourage foreign investors. So this business of pollution is real, and it can impact us in so many different ways. As you can see on screen, these are the various types. I repeat: air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, land and soil pollution, and of course visual pollution. Now I am going to simply allow what is on screen to stay there for a few seconds, and you who are watching the video, you can pause the video at any time and of course read the content of what is on screen as it relates to water pollution, land pollution, There we see various ways in which a land can be polluted by sewage, by oil spills, solid waste, toxic waste from factories, noise and visual pollution, and there you can see detailed information on pollution in the Kingston Harbor, right here in Jamaica. So like I said, feel free to pause the screen to read in greater detail what I'm showing you. Now we move to the next concept, and that is the matter of deforestation. Cutting down our forests, removing plant cover for a wide variety of reasons, whether it be for building and construction, whether it be for farming, whether it be for mining, such as the mining of bauxite. The forest cover, plant cover, natural vegetation is removed, and we end up with a whole variety of problems. Feel free to pause the screen to see greater detail of what is being presented. Now here is a graph showing, for instance, how the problem of deforestation is affecting various countries. And if you look at the bottom of the graph, you will see the countries which are more seriously affected. There we have Jamaica with just 30% of its forest cover remaining. There we see Dominica, Cuba, Barbados, countries such as Antigua and Barbuda having major problems with deforestation. But if you notice in this graph, the country with the greatest problem is the country of Haiti. A very poor country where people are involved in primitive farming, slash and burn agriculture. They burn down the forest to do their farming activities. And so much forest cover has been removed over time from Haiti that they now have a major crisis on their hands, with a lot of erosion resulting because the plants are not there to hold the soil together. And so they have a major problem of deforestation, especially in Haiti. There you see on screen more information on the subject of deforestation. These are the various ways, as you can see on screen: mining, building and tourism and development, cutting down trees for fuel and for the burning of charcoal, cutting down trees for wood and lumber. And here, for instance, in an area of Guyana, the entire hillside is now bare of forest because of deforestation. Like I said, feel free to pause the screen to see these various causes of deforestation in the Caribbean region. And of course, as you can see on screen, the effects of deforestation, or what is called forest degradation or forest destruction, can be long-lasting and widespread. Erosion, a major result of deforestation. Of course, the less forest you have, the less rainfall, and therefore the increase of droughts. As these forests are burnt down and erosion result, you end up having greater flooding because the soil is washed down into the rivers, blocking drains from the hillsides as the soil is washed down into towns, and you end up with greater flooding. As you can see on screen, the habitat of various species are destroyed, and so we end up with depletion of our species of animals and plants that were once abundant. Wildlife being destroyed because we destroy the habitat in which they live. And of course, we come back again to the problem of deforestation and global warming, because as we burn down the forest, the carbon dioxide is released into the air and adds to the greenhouse gases, which increase the temperatures. And naturally, plants which are there to cool down the environment. Everybody knows you stand in an area of forest or under a tree, it's cooler than the surrounding environment. So less trees, the temperature goes up because we have the less trees and plants to air condition the region and cause lower temperatures. There you see on screen. Feel free to pause and get greater information. Here we see an example on screen of a case study of how the government in Guyana is trying to tackle the problem of deforestation. Planting trees or replanting trees by a process called reforestation, one of the solutions to the deforestation problem. This is one of the approaches being used in Guyana, in South America. We now come to the problem of destroying coastal regions, mangrove swamps. Mangrove, those plants which grow in the salt water at the coastline. You see their roots standing up out of the water. Sometimes their roots grow upward from the ground, and sometimes the roots hang from the branches and grow down into the water from the branches. Mangrove. Very, very important plants for keeping the ecosystem in a balance at the coastline, preventing too much erosion of the sand from the coastline when there are storms, being the home, the habitat for fish, and of course for various birds and crabs and all kinds of coastal sea creatures. And of course, the mangrove area is an area which can be helpful to keep the moisture in the air so that the various coastal areas can receive rainfall. As you can see on screen, details on this problem of mangrove destruction and what can result. Feel free to pause the screen and read at your leisure. Now here we have Guyana again being used as an example of a country where the government is trying to tackle the problem of mangrove damage, mangrove degradation, mangrove removal at the coastline or destruction of mangrove vegetation. Now, throughout this study, quite a few terms have been used, and at the end of this chapter, there you see quite a few terms being highlighted, some of which are relevant to your study, some of which are not. Feel free to pause the screen and do further reading on all those key terms that came up in the study. Now, before we close the study, let us look back at our vocabulary list to see if there is any word or any concept that we have not explored. And as we look at the list, we certainly can see that we have not looked at overpopulation and overcrowding. Now, overpopulation simply means whenever the population of a country is greater than the resources of that country can support. So when you have too many people compared to the resources, whether it be the water supply or it be land for building and for farming, or whether it be the various natural products of the earth which can support that population. If the population is greater than the resources can support, that country is said to be overpopulated. Now, many countries in the Caribbean are developing, but several of them remain overpopulated, such as Haiti. Too many persons than the available resources can support. And that is why the more the population of Haiti gets poorer and poorer, the greater the pressure on the environment for survival, and hence the problem continues in what we call a vicious cycle. Overcrowding, different meaning in that whenever there are too many persons to one area of land, so the country may not necessarily be overpopulated, but you can have a city or town being overcrowded because there are too many people occupying one's area of land. And so when you have a lot of people bunched into one small area, and so you end up with limited land for housing, you have so much traffic on the road in the towns, you have limited space for expansion of businesses and factories, that area is said to be overcrowded. We also mentioned in passing what is called the extinction of species. So whether by hunting or by destruction of the forest by deforestation, humans tend to destroy and remove forever certain species of plants or birds or lizards or frogs, animals in general that occupy an area. And so you can imagine it's not just happening all over the world, but it's happening right in the Caribbean and even in Jamaica, where certain birds, certain plants, certain lizards, certain frogs that you could have seen 20 years ago live in the forest or in the woodland nearby or in the natural vegetation environment, they no longer exist, and you can only read about them in books or see them in past videos. So we are preventing our future generation from seeing these living creatures in the natural environment because of extinction of species. We mentioned, of course, the various wildfires and forest fires that result year after year because of either droughts and the land is extremely dry, or people carelessly leave fires unattended and you end up with these large areas of hillsides and burnt down, destroying the natural environment, adding greenhouse gases to the air, and of course destroying the natural habitat of plants and animals. So we have these major forest fires which at times become a threat to life and property, and we hear of people dying and their homes being destroyed and areas becoming unproductive for a while because the land is destroyed and erosion develop, and we have one vicious cycle of problems occurring because of forest fires. We learned also that as global warming impact the globe and the Caribbean as well, flooding and droughts, the extremes in weather, they are becoming more pronounced year after year. And so, as we bring this study to a close, I remind you, go through your vocabulary list. Ensure that all of the terms there, you know what they mean. Make sure that you see their connection to the study of how humans impact the natural and man-made environment, whether it be through their primary activities, their secondary activities or their tertiary activities. Note the connection between human activities and erosion, deforestation, pollution, whether it be land pollution, water pollution, air pollution, noise pollution, and as we learned today, even visibility pollution. You can't see far in the distance because of smog. See the connection between human activities and climate change, global warming, flooding, droughts, wildfires, depletion of resources, whether they be natural or they be renewable or they be non-renewable resources, human activities and the destruction of or extinction of species of plants and animals, and how humans pressure the environment in which we live by overcrowding in towns and cities and by overpopulating countries on a whole where the resources cannot support the numbers of people living in those countries. Make sure that you watch this video, pause the screen where necessary, and read as displayed on screen greater detail. Let me hope that this video gave you sufficient information that you can work with as you study this topic. Impact of human activities on the Caribbean landscape. Thank you for listening.